Welcome. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to wait a moment as we have a few people who I'm sure are about to log on to the ASW UAC webinar, Growth Without Compromise. So we're just going to give you guys a couple of minutes. I can see we've already got a ton of people starting to log on here, which is fantastic. We've been overwhelmed with the response here today, guys and girls. I'm a bit stunned as to the response. We've had hundreds of people register, so I'm a bit nervous. We'll be okay. Maybe to start with, I just thought, why don't we do in the comments section? Oh, there's my guy, HG. Hello, Hugh. Why don't we do a bit of a ring around for those who are jumping on live? Would love to hear where you're dialing in from. Maybe post a comment to where you're dialing in. Gives you everyone else a chance to see who's on the link and where you're logging in from. What town or what area you're coming in from. HG, so good to see you up there, mate. The Master in Webinars. Angela's logging in from Sydney. Hey, Angela, thanks for coming in. Andrew, Crimborn East, my guy. Andrea Poole. Hi, Andrea. All the way from NZ. Hey, Peter. Thanks from Breese, Vegas. Love that. Hey, Bob. Wonderful. Hi, Vicky from Cronulla. Wow, that's special for me, Vicky. We're neighbours, so good to have a fellow Sutherland Shire person in the house. Wonderful. Craig, my guy. How are you, Craig? Hope you're here, mate. Good to see you in the channel. A few from the Philippines. Steve. Hey, Steve. Welcome from Adelaide. Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. There's tons tuning in, so that's brilliant. Guys, I think with the intros now underway, look, I think I'll kick off. We've had over 350 people registered for this event. I'm completely overwhelmed with that response. It's been fantastic. Clearly, there's an interest in international staffing and what we do, and the appetite for international staff. So that's been really, really pleasing. Today, we're going to cover a really broad range of information. So, however, we're going to try and keep this really short. We don't want to take up too much of your time, so you get the most possible value from it. We've got a fantastic guest speaker who's joining. We've pre-recorded it to make time really efficient today. And in addition to that, we've got another case study recording as well, which we're going to send as almost like a bonus after the call. So Rocco Perello from GSA Insurance is joining for his case study, where they started and where they are now. And the other that we're going to be sending is Johnny Elliott from Elliott Insurance in WA. The really great story with John is that literally he was on a webinar just like this with us 12 months ago. And today he's got 6 staff already, and that team is delivering incredible productivity, an opportunity now for his business to take the next leap. So really fortunate and thankful that both Rocco and John have given an insight to their experience in growing an international team. So thanks to those guys. Today, I think just to keep things interesting, Tara, who's spinning the wheels of steel in the background, is going to select 2 random people. We're going to be sending out a bottle of Penfolds to 2 of you. So make sure you're keeping the comments up, because Tara will be sure to select you and send something out. Who knows? I might even add a few more. See how generous we're feeling today. Hey, Michelle from Central Coast, thanks for joining. So looking forward to ripping in. So with that said, let's get started. I love this quote, and I think it's so true. Growth is never by mere chance. It's a result of forces working together. And I think for anybody in this call who either has a team or maybe even standalone, growing solo is near impossible, and building international teams on your own is also incredibly difficult. So we love this quote. I think one of the things you might be asking, who is this guy? why is he talking to me? I thought I'm really proud that UAC have invited us to speak today. Why is that? A bit about me and my background. I was very fortunate. I'm a country Victoria boy originally. I was fortunate to get drafted into the AFL, to the Demons. For those of you in Queensland or maybe even New South Wales, that's the other game that the rest of the country plays. And really fortunate to get into that system. But unfortunately, a couple of knee reconstructions ended that dream pretty swiftly, which meant that I needed to get a real job. And after doing that, I decided to start my own business. And that business scaled to 30 staff. We were interstate business. We had a multi-million-dollar revenue. But look, after 11 years, I was wearing many hats still, and I was burnt out. I had enough, and I vowed that when I exit that business, I guess one of the key aspects to my story is that a few short years after exiting that business, it closed its doors and it was no longer viable. And I guess when I started my next company, the goal was to ensure that I grew it differently. And I was fortunate to exit that company, that business, after a few short years. And that really led me down to this path today, which is the ASW international teams path, and to ensure that companies can endure and are viable and can scale and provide opportunity locally. Today, I've been very lucky. I consider myself very, very lucky to help more than 170 different businesses build their international teams. So I think that I'm really pleased to be here today to be sharing some information with you about how ASW has helped many clients, like the ones who are on your screen right now, from both locally here in Australia, NZ as well, and big brands from businesses like Steadfast and Invest and McLarty McShane and GSA, to smaller businesses as well. So I think that some of you today will be on this call wondering, if you're a small business, is this for me? Is this just for big business? And I think that's an important element, that ultimately this can support businesses of all sizes and all locations. I guess the other thing is for you on the call, for all of you on the call, some of you will be business leaders and business owners. Others will be doing administrative tasks and looking for ways to be able to take on more responsibility. And potentially this becomes a vehicle whereby your business can take on this international model, allowing you to be able to do more responsible tasks in the business, client-facing tasks in the business that ensures growth overall. I guess as far as our ASW, where we are today and why we're talking with you today, we're now a 14-year-old organisation. We have office headquarters here in Sydney, which is where I am based now. Almost 2,000 staff. We need to update this. We're going a bit too quickly, but 1,900 staff at the moment, over 170 clients. We have offices in the Philippines, in Manila, in Malaysia, in KL, in Thailand, in Bangkok, and also in Ho Chi Minh, in Vietnam. As I mentioned, our offices are here in Sydney, Australia. Across the business, we're an ISO data security certified business, which for those on the call who are worried about data security, that will be a really important element. A 93% client success rate. And one of the things I always find really interesting is over the journey, over the 1,900 odd staff, there's been over 100 unique roles that we've hired for our clients, from marketing to HR to software engineers, and obviously today, plenty in the professional services space within the insurance industry specifically and underwriting industry specifically. So it's been a really broad range of skills that we've had available. As I mentioned, businesses are always interested and leaders are always interested in what are the offices like overseas. Today, this gives you a bit of a taste as to the ASW environment. As you can see, these are real photos. They're not Shutterstock pics. And we have offices, as I said, in Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Class A office infrastructure, which is really designed around attracting the best possible talent we possibly can for our clients. And we feel that's a great value for each team member that comes along. We might go to the next one. So what do we do and how do we fit in the scheme of things? So ASW, I guess you'd fit into a managed service provider. And what that means is we provide talent, as in we find and source candidates. We manage the recruitment process with all clients, provide insights and talent mapping. We advertise jobs and screen, and we interview coordinations and what have you. We manage the HR, probationary periods, performance evaluations, salary reviews, all of those things that from a management perspective can be challenging, alleviating some of those pressures. As you saw earlier, we manage the office infrastructure and facilities, the IT hardware, the laptops, keyboards, software is all client operated. And we provide the IT support ongoing. As I mentioned before, we are an ISO data security certified business. We then do the team building, making sure that teams are integrating well and fitting and delivering on both team culture and also performance, and then providing client services. Every client has an account manager that's there to support for all escalations, providing monthly reporting, in-office activities, and travel arrangements when needed when clients visit the offices, which I know some of you on the call have, and also when we have staff visit their clients here in Australia. We might move to the next slide. So what's driving the interest today and what are we seeing? So I guess today we're going to talk about what is driving the market and the interest in international teams. What are the barriers that businesses tend to face before or during building an international team? Which model is right for you? And I think this is really important. I think for those of you who have tried international staffing and perhaps failed, perhaps the model wasn't the right fit for where your business needed at that time. So I'm looking forward to talking to that really swiftly. As I mentioned before, today Rocco is going to join us for his business case. And we also have, as I mentioned before, Johnny Elliott's business case, which we'll share later. And we're going to talk about talent insights. So what are the talent pools like in these locations? What can you expect to potentially have as a salary cost? And then ultimately opening things up for a Q&A. The goal today, guys, is to get through things as swiftly as we can, share as much information as we possibly can. Good to see you, Rocco, joining us on there as well. I can see you there giving the Shire a pump up. Thank you. So yeah, today really is about giving as much value to you guys as we possibly can, and we will do our best to answer all the questions. Timmy, thanks for joining, mate. Love to have you on. Thank you from All Trades. Let's go into the next. So what's driving the market? What's driving the interest? Some of you may have already noticed, but we're operating a pretty limited talent pool at the moment here in Australia. We see this, most of the executives see this as a significant barrier to their growth. For locations like the Philippines and Malaysia, there's the access to an extra 146 million people. So it's a huge talent pool when comparing to our little island here in Australia. The average salary difference, the salary difference in that talent pool is clearly very attractive. On average, sort of falling between 50 and 70% difference to local salaries. So that's obviously a major driver for businesses that perhaps want to grow effectively or potentially unlock profitability to invest in new areas. Staff productivity, I think, is one of the great ones that we're hearing from most business leaders these days. And I think amidst some of the natural disasters, more recently Cyclone Alfred, it shows that a lot of businesses now are struggling to keep up with claims administration amidst the growing regulatory problems with compliance, etc. And that's ultimately hampering staff productivity to the extent that the average client-facing role now is spending 62% of their time doing non-revenue client-facing related work. And I can only imagine what most of you would do if you had an extra 3 days up your sleeve to be able to do the work, what that might actually mean for each of you. So that's a huge driver for us. And we're seeing a lot of businesses now simply just wanting to leverage their onshore capability and removing the bottleneck. The other obviously is we are dealing with an inflationary challenge here in Australia. So eroding profits and rising costs are certainly a challenge. And I guess the other one is, which is often underestimated, is failed retention of staff. We're seeing a lot of that at the moment, particularly with a younger demographic, and I guess a very short or low unemployment rate of about 4.5%. Put simply, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and retaining talent is becoming more of a problem, to the extent where the average failed hire now locally is in excess of 25K. Let's move to our next slide. So what are the barriers that businesses are facing? Let's talk to these for a moment. The most common, the first is onshore sentiment. I think a lot of business leaders, and I'm sure for those who have grown teams with us who may be on the call, will agree. The first is, I guess, is their local teams perhaps being fearful of jobs being international. And that's understandable, a very fight or flight mentality. And ensuring that staff are taken along for the journey is critical to ensuring that this works really well. One of the other barriers is time zone, and ensuring that building a team with a time zone that is favourable to local Australian business hours or NZ business hours is also really critical, because the goal here is for you guys to be able to leverage your productivity, not necessarily answer calls at 10 or 11 p.m. at night as a result of a delayed time zone. So that's really critical to ensuring that your business and your international team can work in parallel to deliver an optimal outcome for your clients. The other barrier we see, understandably, is data security. And I think it's not surprising, particularly on things that have happened within Optus and Medibank and what have you, that data security now is really critical. And ensuring that any business that goes down this path does so with data security front of mind is absolutely critical. Your client's data is important. Ensuring that is managed effectively is highly important. The other is the capability barrier. Put simply, can international teams understand the nuances and how Australian brokers and insurance and underwriting agencies operate? Will they understand the nuances involved in working for Australian businesses and working with Australian clients? Which leads into communication. Will they simply understand how ASW or staff communicate day to day? Is that easygoing? And I think that's very, very key and a real critical part to the recruitment process. And lastly, as I mentioned before, is around performance. Actually ensuring that you guys, yes, things are going to be cost effective, but does that mean I need to compensate potentially on the quality of output? And those things certainly need to be addressed to ensure that you guys all get an optimal outcome. Okay. So, which staffing model is right for your business? And there are 5 models that we see day in and day out that businesses just like yours look to explore. Now, the first is freelancing, and you would have heard of this. It's on apps like Upwork and Fiverr and what have you. Can be very, very handy for short-term or project-based work, and even identifying potentially direct employees. But ultimately, where this becomes attractive is for project and ad hoc based work, i.e. designing logos, cleaning data, but not necessarily an ongoing dedicated employee. Understandably, people who are freelancing are usually working on multiple projects in order to be able to make an income that can support their family. The direct relationship is one that sounds exactly like it is, and that is employing staff without necessarily having employment contracts in place, whilst it isn't necessarily recommended, particularly for businesses who have client data in mind and who are looking for some level of governance. It means that you're simply employing staff on a direct trust-based relationship. Outsourcing is probably the most common model most people would have heard of. And that really is about working more so on a business relationship with a provider rather than the team members themselves. And what that means is ultimately the provider is providing you anonymous staff to work on behalf of the provider to fulfill a task for you guys. Now, traditionally, you wouldn't be part of the interview selection or necessarily part of the review process. Usually that's managed by the outsourced provider, and potentially who catches that file might determine the quality or the speed. And it's usually a shared service. So they might be working for your brand on one day, another brand on another day, and so on. An incorporated model is, again, for a business that's established its own entity overseas. Again, pretty straightforward. Your Pepsis, your Coca-Colas, your large organizations and enterprise organizations, that ultimately makes sense for those businesses at times. And then lastly, there is the international talent partnering model, which ultimately, in our model, the clients have choice in the interview selection. You have governance in regards to the process. All staff are known by name. Ultimately, yes, still the cost benefits. However, the client still owns the team, albeit not on their employment contracts. I thought we might now roll into the case study with Rocco, who was very kind to give up his time and share his experience. So with that said, we might cut to the video, and at the end of that, we might fire away with some questions. In the meantime, we'll make sure that we start responding to what's already in the thread. Let's play the video.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks to be here. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to the industry about this. GSA Insurance Brokers, this year we're celebrating our 35th year. We are down in our home at 137 Harrington Street for the Rock. We're just nudging 90 staff with a few open roles out there, as most businesses in the industry have at the moment. It's a little bit about GSA, probably a bit about my role, if it's helpful for some context. Title, EGM operations. I've been here now 15 years out of those 35 years. So a lot of my knowledge comes from just understanding our business and operations. So my responsibilities span right across IT, systems, HR, compliance, broking process, and marketing. Fortunate to have a team of about 4 or 5 that help wear those hats across the business. It's an interesting one. I think our journey together is probably pushing on 2 years now from memory. And before that, we, as a leadership team, we'd always spoken about international, about outsourcing, about overseas staff. And quite honestly, the challenge was we hadn't grasped how it worked. We had tried, and I think our mindset wasn't quite right. We saw it as an admin hub, as a place that would send work and overnight it would come back to us. And probably you recall, Dan, but we caught up for a coffee and you had a way of articulating it and presenting it in a slightly different way where perhaps we should have always seen it this way, but we were bringing on new staff from a new market that were just part of the team, just like any staff member we've got at GSA. So when we sat there, we had challenges, opportunities, however you'd like to call them, around costs and around efficiencies. And an interesting one was staff and giving our staff here in Australia a chance to grow, a chance to be out there meeting clients. But that admin and support side was always a burden. So that's where it came from. It was once we spoke that we had a better understanding of, hey, this is growing your support team and growing your business. This isn't just a transactional admin hub. I think that made a really big difference to us being able to take that leap. I think it's the obvious. I think it's, without being too obvious about it, it was the apprehension, it was the unknown about it all. It was the quality of work and how would the hours work and how does the language work and how does the process work? Do we put work in a spreadsheet? Do we get it back the next day? And to some extent, without oversimplifying it, we're probably overthinking it. We were worried about all of these things. There was some apprehension about it. And I think what changed is that as we understood it, we understood what we needed, what we wanted. We were able to be quite deliberate about how we built that team. And it allowed us to take that leap and give it a go. Before that, there were all these unknowns that we didn't have answers to. And Dan, as he helped answer those questions and gave us the confidence to give it a go. Changes. It's funny, right? But we threw ourselves at it, and for some people that change came quickly, and that understanding of how it worked came quickly. For some, it took a little longer, but probably surprisingly, it went a lot smoother than I think we all expected. I'd like to think that because we threw ourselves at it, as individuals and as a business. So we treated the people that we were interviewing and that we were bringing on board just like any other part of our team. And by putting that energy and that time and effort into it, this is why I say it felt smoother, is that we saw that come back pretty quickly. Best way I think I can answer that is that it's given our team here in Australia room to grow. Not long ago, we did it the other way around, and that also played its part, is that we had some senior people in the business step up and give room for our brokers and our staff to grow upwards. And this is almost bookending it on the other end by providing that support team around our brokers and around other parts of our business, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It gave them the opportunity to grow. And people on this call will have had this conversation in their businesses, and it comes from experience that you learn by going out there, you learn by going and seeing clients, you learn by touring a client's facilities, and maybe this is a post-COVID era item, but you simply just don't get those opportunities like you used to. So providing that support stuff around it is just giving our people an opportunity to, I wouldn't say let go of that admin burden. I think you need to really be clear that you always have to be involved in that. This is not a set and forget item, but it cleared a lot of time to be able to spend more time on those career progression items and educational items that allows your people to take a step ahead. And ultimately, like at the end of the day, it's all about our staff, it's all about our clients, and be able to deliver some more value to our clients. Yeah, this is certainly part of the process that I didn't appreciate before it, but the fact that the recruitment side of things was all part and parcel of the offering. I remember when we took that first leap with our first role in our workers' comp team, we put the brief together for you, and you came back with 5-6 names ready to interview, and that was refreshing. That was surprising, right? ASW came to us with a handful of people that again, something I didn't appreciate, but we were interviewing people that, whilst they were overseas, were working for Australian brands and Australian businesses and have similar resumes to the kinds of people we'd be interviewing here. So the recruitment process is something that I had not quite grasped when we started it, but made for a much smoother process. I think as we started to meet people and we started to analyze them and interview them just like we would any other staff member, it made a big difference to the whole process. I think we only made an offer when we had met someone that we thought was capable and that we thought fitted our culture and could do the job well. Is that a staff member we bring on anywhere in the world or anywhere in Australia gets the same treatment, from the interview process to the onboarding process, to the probation process, to the personal development plans, to the one-on-ones, to the way we interact in, WIP meetings, team meetings, monthly meetings. They get all the same processes that we already hold at GSA. It is that we set the same standards across the business regardless of location. It is that we're all exposed to the same training, same audit processes. It is that we're just as critical in an interview when we're assessing someone regardless of where they are. It might be oversimplifying it, but for us that makes life easier. It's one not so much set and forget way, but it is one way across the business to ensure those standards remain in place. So if it's about, we talk about the pessimistic items of probation reviews and performance management, as a leadership team, we hold all of ourselves to that same process and same standard. Yeah, I think we started with the obvious, to use the words admin and support. There was an area of the business in workers' comp where we were needed or we were looking for some admin support, and timing came right that we'd met and you'd articulated in a way that made sense to us, and we said, well, let's give it a go. Let's try it. So that was the obvious part. And then when that seemed to work, when that seemed to deliver the efficiencies and the growth and the staff around them that we've already talked about, we replicated that to other broking divisions, to our general insurance team, our financial lines team. So not so much cookie cutter, but in some respect, it was let's do the same thing across other pods, I guess, across other divisions, across other broking teams. Where we then took another leap is that we gave it a go on the shared services side. So we've got a staff member on the marketing side, and we came across a brilliant candidate that's helped us deliver more on the marketing side and have that person that we could send information to and get great output back. So marketing as well as finance, and most recently we're looking at that like a leadership support. So it was just the journey we went on. It felt pretty organic in that wherever there was a need, we sat down together and we put the brief together and we looked at candidates and understood what was out there. This probably sounds basic, but I would probably say as a leadership team or the key decision maker in the business is just to zoom out, understand the business, understand where things are at, understand where the needs are and the wants are, and that allows you to be more deliberate about it. It allows you to give it a go without that apprehension or unknown. So if you zoom out and you have to think about what we need, what do our people need? Where are they getting stuck on admin tasks, on support tasks? Where could we be delivering more? And have a chat with someone like Dan and just go, okay, is there a workforce out there that can fill that need for us? Put someone on, see how it works, do your due diligence, of course, understand the supplier that's right for you. I think if you go in there and you go to hire someone internationally and you haven't got that, keep using the word deliberateness about it, if that's the word, you might find yourself just hiring someone and being unsure what to do with them, how to manage them, where to utilize them. So as always, it starts with the foundations. It's that transition in mindset from an overseas admin hub and transactional to having a team of people that are ours, that are part of our team, that we own in some respect, that are a wholly part of the team. That was the big shift for us. As soon as we understood that and got our head around that, it allowed us to really give it a go. And then the whole process from start to finish, like I said, the recruitment process was one that I'd underappreciated, the sourcing of talent, the onboarding, the moving them through probation, the embedding them into the team and processes and culture, and the support that you kind of get along the way. The whole process, start to finish, has been collaborative, right? It's a partnership. I think we've got a good working relationship, and that, yeah, the whole thing's important. I don't think there's anything that one thing would stand out.
Thank you, Rocco, for your time there, mate. I'm sure there's a lot of value there for people, I guess, sharing your journey and what you went through there with GSA. Again, 2 years in, a great team, now providing really great value. Some really great questions as well. And please put any questions up in the comments. I'm happy to answer those at the appropriate time. Samantha has asked a really great question. What type of work perhaps wouldn't you recommend? And I think the answer to that one, Samantha, is that I think it's about where you start rather than where not to begin or what not to do. And what I mean by that is most businesses understandably start with a lot of the heavy administrative burden. So that's certainly where you begin, because that will leverage your local team, as opposed to perhaps going straight into a very client-facing type role. The second type of work, perhaps where you wouldn't necessarily recommend, would be where you don't have perhaps the local IP or knowledge base to be able to help manage and ensure performance for that team member. So I think ultimately, if you're leaving staff to their own devices and not providing the right guidance for them to be able to succeed, then it's very hard for them to be able to deliver upon that. I might jump in, and if there's more questions, please throw them in the chat. So good to see so many people tuning in. Okay. A few key lessons, again, on the back of Rocco's awesome chat. A few key lessons that we've found to ensure success and to ensure, I guess, the quality is there for staff. The first is around culture integration. And what I mean by that is that staff feel like they're part of your local business. I think if you're hiring staff locally or abroad and not necessarily bringing them into the vision, the goals, and what it is that your brand are trying to achieve, it is very hard for that staff to then be able to feel like they are a contributor to that team. The other is having a really, really rigid and strategic recruitment process. Now, locally in Australia, retention rates for a lot of the administration roles can be really, really low. So still high staff turnover. In order to get really great retention internationally, you've got to have a really robust recruitment process and onboarding process. If you are looking at partners, there should be a client success manager, someone who's there to be able to articulate what it is from a recruitment process, to be able to set up a performance plan, and ensure that staff are onboarding really effectively into your business, which then leads to having very, very clear processes. I think one of the business barriers is that a lot of businesses don't grow because they don't have a documented process. Now, that would be wonderful. However, I can't tell you how many businesses have grown and simply documented and recorded their video training as they've onboarded their team. The key elements of that, though, is hiring experienced staff who already have a really good intuition and understanding about how the insurance or underwriting industry operates. Employee engagement, as that was touched on before by Rocco, really engaging with staff, making sure that they're very aware of their roles, their responsibilities, the brand, the ethics of the brand and values, super important. Ensuring that they are being engaged, so if there are communications going out, that they're included. When there are trainings happening or new products, that they're part of that. Those things have enormous upside to the retention rates, which then leads into regular training and development. Invest in your staff and they will stay long term. A good question here from Peter, which I'll show for everybody. What are the retention metrics like? And I think it's a good question, Peter. Thanks for asking. When we look at BPO industry, the business processing industry broadly, the retention rates are quite low, to be perfectly honest with you, Peter. Industry metrics suggest that BPO staff retention is around 40%. We're very fortunate that our own retention is over 90%, but there's a reason for that. And there's a secret sauce to why that is. And one of them is, and the things that Rocco mentioned earlier, is that so staff feel like that, firstly, we have a strategic recruitment process and hiring people who are purpose fit for a role rather than simply delegating you anonymous bodies. That's the first. By doing so, we're hiring the right kind of people for the right kind of culture and not trying to fit square pegs into round holes or rotating staff who perhaps can't find a more permanent opportunity. The second reason is, as I mentioned before, is staff actually feel valued and part of your brand by way of that model. So because of that, you guys are very much involved in the recruitment process, as I mentioned, but also performance and the overall team integration. So, and then lastly, having really great facilities, really great employee benefits ensure that retention is strong. But again, each business will have its own retention rates. We're quite fortunate. We've been lucky enough to be a certified great place to work in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. And Vietnam, I guess, Thailand, given it's only new, we hope to have on that list as well very, very soon. Okay, some talent insights. One of the things we're hearing from business is, what can we expect from a talent perspective, from a talent pool and or salary? And this just gives you a flavour as to the different insights from a junior, mid or senior type level experienced talent. For the sake of today's purposes, we've removed local Australian on costs, for example, super and payroll, your office, your HR, your IT costs. That's all been stripped away to base. And then I guess the other is on ASW side, we haven't included management fees as well. So that way you're getting a true comparison, local v international teams. As you can see, and as I mentioned earlier in the call, traditionally you'll see a difference of about 50 to 70%, sometimes more. It will depend as to what the provider is providing by way of infrastructure, resources, support, recruitment, IT, all those things will play into it. And ultimately you'll have a different level of importance on each of those things. Might move to the next slide. The talent pool insights. Now, we're very fortunate as a business with almost 2,000 staff. The majority of our talent is headhunted, and that gives us some access to some pretty great recruitment tools and talent mapping insights. At a very high level, it gives you an insight here as to how many candidates are in these markets, the Philippines and Malaysia, specifically for insurance and underwriting. What's interesting is, in the Philippines, there's over 100 million people. In Malaysia, there's over 30. However, even in Malaysia, whilst there's still a large difference in population, comparatively per capita, quite a dense talent pool for insurance talent. So that hopefully that gives businesses an insight as to the talent pool size, noting there is broader insights. This is specifically from some of our tools that we use. Might go to the last bit. What are the kind of tasks that businesses are looking to do internationally? Sorry, we've lost my slide. It comes everything from compliance, and we might try and bring that slide back up if we can bring it. No, doesn't want to come back. Give us a moment, guys. Here it comes. So, what are the roles? Compliance and monitoring, portfolio, billing and invoicing, claims processing and renewal notices, market research, coverage reviews, applications, policy processing, report generation, obviously data entry and documentation, mail indexing, debtors, claims management, financial, and then it goes outside of those traditional roles. As Rocco mentioned, things like marketing, social media management, CRM integration, bookkeeping, and the list goes on. It's a really broad range. I hope today that gives you a bit of an insight. We've gone for about 40 minutes. And as I mentioned before, we do have another case study, which we'll send after today. If there are questions, guys, that you'd like to ask, please put them in the box. I'll do my best to answer them all for you. Great to see you here, Susan, from Perth. Sue's got a great team. We're really pleased to have SGUA as one of our clients, and they've been fantastic. If there are questions, guys, I'll just leave it a moment and feel free to fire away. For those of you who are sick of hearing my voice, that's okay. I understand. You're more than welcome. One of the questions here from Andrew. Look, thanks, Andrew, for the question. It's a great one for smaller brokerages, which many I'm sure are, and also are often the ones who are struggling the most from an administration perspective. In our model, we don't do part-time. There is a strategic approach to that. There are providers out there that will do part-time. Understandably, if staff are working part-time for your brand, Andrew, they're more than likely going to have to work maybe part-time somewhere else. In our model, every employee is full-time dedicated to that one brand, that one team. But there are providers out there, Andrew, that do that. I may be able to connect you with a few of those if you want to have a chat, and you can explore those opportunities with them. I think importantly, you still want to be really diligent in the recruitment process there, Andrew, if it was for 1 or 2 days. But it's a good question, mate. Thank you for asking. Any other questions there? Any compliance issues with AFS? No, I think the important piece there is around data security, Andrew. I think having really strong data security from a compliance piece is really important. So I think that becomes the paramount overarching piece there. And I think the other element there from a compliance piece is most businesses also have, I guess, a final mile check locally as well, to ensure that whatever staff are creating or doing on behalf, there's a sense of escalation locally here to be able to check that work. I think a similar question to Kate. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I think it's one of those ones. Yes, you can certainly hire staff who do have a crossover. So that's a good question, Kate. I might just pop that one up for everybody. Is there the possible for 1 or 2 days in an ops role and then potentially 1 or 2 days in assistant broking? The short answer to that one is, Kate, absolutely. Yes, we have a lot of clients that do that, where they've got almost like a hybrid role in the sense that they're doing a broker admin role. And then for the days when perhaps the broker admin tasks are not necessarily required, that they then do more administrational type support in other areas of the business. And it's a really good question. And the reason for that is, in an outsourcing model, you're simply sending one task or one file. And so you're limited to the breadth of opportunity that is available by way of that particular model. In the international teams model, that team member owns a role, and that role can include as broad a scope as you are looking for. Again, the really important element there, though, is in that recruitment process. And when you are going down that recruitment process, you're traditionally hiring based on which is the technical skill of those roles that you need to complete, those tasks that you need completed. But really good question. Thanks, Kate. Quite a few similar questions by the sound of things. One from Canal. Yes, in our model, all of our staff work Australian business hours, East Coast business hours. Just to give you some context there, the Philippines and Malaysia are 2 hours behind us and 3 hours in daylight savings. So traditionally, staff will log on a bit earlier. For those of you who are on the call in WA, makes it really easy because they follow WA business hours. But for those on the East Coast, yes, you can have staff follow the Australian business hours, which is seamless and fantastic. I think that's about it. So I might leave it there. There's a question there from Samantha in regards to typical transition timeline. I think that's a really good one in regards to process, design, implementation. It's a good question because, and the answer to that one, Sam, comes down to the experience of your team member. One thing that we do recommend for all businesses is to go down a path whereby you're hiring staff who are experienced, particularly for those who are the first timers. So that makes that learning curve, the onboarding, seamless, as opposed to having to sort out timeline by way of process identification, designing that process and implementing it. So that will shorten that enormously, particularly if you've got a mid-level or better type team member, which your provider should be able to source for you. Okay. Any other questions? That's good. All right, guys. Well, look, I think certainly if you do have more questions, hit me up offline. You can find me at LinkedIn. Jump on my messenger or shoot me an email if you need to find me via the website. We are going to send through a copy of this. Really, again, I'm chuffed with how many of you have registered. Over 350 people have registered. Some of you will be watching it live. Obviously, others will watch the replay. So thanks again. And if I can be of any help, please reach out. Okay. Oh, good question. Sorry, I've just been reminded. For those who do want a 10-point checklist, the must-have checklist before you grow, hit me in the comments or shoot me an email. I will send you a copy of the 10-point checklist. It's the things you want to know before you grow and to ensure that your provider is doing those things. So feel free to hit me in the comments if you want one. We'll send it directly out to you. It'll be great value, I'm sure. Pete wants one. No worries, Peter. Andrew would like one. No worries, Andrew. Thanks, Ash, for jumping on. Really appreciate that, mate. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate that, Ross. Thanks, Canal. Penny, no problem. We'll get you one. That's fine. Awesome. Good. Fayez, thank you, Fayez. We'll get you one as well. Leanne, no problem. Okay.